friends, it's Gina. Welcome to the Rebookery channel. Look at this mess. This is crazy. This is my basket of collage and scrap paper that I use whenever I am trying to create something, and yeah, it's a mess. And here's the sad and scary thing. This is not the only one I have. I actually have it multiplied. I have bags, probably 3 bags that are just like this, that are my portable art supplies. And the problem is, as I'm sure you guys can feel my pain on this, the problem is that when I go to create and then I have this huge mess here, I am like not even wanting to create. It is just so ridiculous. This is just awful. I don't even want to do anything because this is such a mess and it's so overwhelming. So I have tried to come up with a way to contain my art mess, specifically my paper mess. So what I came up with was a booklet, a collage book, or a collage ephemera book, where I would take just a collection of papers, just random papers, and I would bind them in a book. And my idea was that when I was using these supplies, like if I was art journaling or if I was scrapbooking, I would use nothing except for what is in here. So if it's not in here, then I don't use it. The other thing is that I wanted this to become something that is totally consumable. Like eventually I want to get to the point where there's nothing left, maybe just a few little scraps. But even the binding thread that I used, paper clips and tape, I want it to be all consumable, and I want it to be something that will eventually make its way into my journals. So I played around with this for the last couple of months. I made 3 of these. Here are the 2 that I still have going. What I've done is I just go through and I either cut what I want or I tear out what I want. Sometimes I'll use my paper punch and I'll punch something out if I want a specific shape. And then if I have little scraps, what I do is I just clip them in to the book, or I'll tape them in to the book so that it's all contained and it all is in one place. And again, it makes me use what I have, and then I don't get overwhelmed by the huge mass of paper. So my original thought was that I would make these so that it could be contained in my traveler's notebook, and it actually fits really well. So when I made these, because I made a bunch of these to put into my Etsy shop, I made them about the same size so that, oh, there it is, so that you could, you know, do the same thing, put it in your traveler's notebook, if that was something that you wanted to do. So I made 10 of these, and again, I want them to be totally consumable. So as I was making them, I made some adjustments from the ones that I had made for myself. I added some extra ribbon and some seam binding. I added some extra long twine, did some stitching, and then I jammed these babies full of goodness. Like I couldn't even stop. I actually added a few more things in these that I didn't have in my ones that I made for myself. So before I show you what each one of them looks like, let me show you some of the things that I put in them. So I put in each one has a calendar page from 1973, and it's a calendar on one side, and then the other side it's some sort of a vintage train. Each one has, oh, there you go. Each one has a doily. Each one has a page from this teeny tiny little golden book. Everything is vintage except for this paper right here is so cool. I got it like on clearance at the paper source a year or 2 ago, and so I just cut out a little piece of this. So each one has either 3 or 2 of the glasses, and I just clipped them in. So there's a little scrap of this paper. Each one of them has a picture from, or a page from this really old Henny Penny book, and I actually just clipped it in with a little paper clip. Each book has a vintage cookbook dust jacket, or part of a dust jacket. Then each book has wrapping paper, and so I just chose some wrapping paper from my stash. So each one will have a piece of this, a piece of this, and then it'll either be a piece of this or a piece of this. I didn't have enough to put them in all of them. And then each one has a piece of this. Then I took a page from Highlights 1969, cut it in half, so each one will have a page from the highlights. They will each have a bridge scoring, like pad scoring paper. And then I know you young whippersnappers out there love to collage with napkins, and there's a whole bunch of tutorials and stuff on how to do this, but basically you tear the layers apart, and it makes really nice collage material. So I had these vintage napkins with roses on them. I think they're roses. And so I just cut them in half, and each book has a napkin in there. Each book has some, I think 2 pages from this book on hanging plants for modern living. So each one, and these photographs are beautiful, and the paper is nice and thick. So these make really nice collage materials. So each one has 2 pages of that. Each book has 2 pages from my most favoritist. This is my most favoritist collage book. I love, anytime I'm doing garden or nature or animals, this one is the one I go to. And I actually have like 3 of these, but I tore out some pages. So each book has 2 pages from this. There's a page on a tree, and then there's you'll either get flowers, or I think there were some that I put mushrooms in. Oh, this is cool. So this was a stack of TWA Boeing jet airplane like schematics. And so I have a stack of these, and each book has one of these technical drawings, which is kind of cool. Each book has a page from this Work Basket magazine from 1987, and so there's this is a knitting, sewing, embroidery type of magazine. Each book has a page from this vintage sheet music book, and this is nice and thick, and it's not real brittle, which that makes nice collage material. Each book has a page from this yearbook, which is from 1961, and there is a storybook page in each book, and then there is a page from this, and I took the page from the, oh, here we go, the travel section. So each book has a page from this travel section right here. And then each book has cookbook pages. So there's this one that has the pictures on it, and then there's this one that's a matte paper, and it just has words on it, and it was actually desserts. So that was the basics. And once I put that all together, I was like, okay, that's cool, but I'm gonna up the cool factor. And so then I added some fabric. So each book has a cutout of this thing of fabric that I got at a thrift store, and I love, love, love this fabric. The covers of these books I made from these Lang calendars that my stepmother, she gets them every year, and then she sends them to me to use. And I didn't necessarily use them for the artwork, although they have some very pretty artwork. It's just not really my style. But what I used them for the reason why I used them is because the paper is nice and thick, but it's also pliable. So I had a calendar from 2016, and then I cut it apart, and that's what I used for the cover. Once I cut the covers apart, I then took them out and I spray painted, and I love circles. I have some circle stencils, and so I think they're simple and they add some interest, but you can also add your own, you know, your own artwork and stuff on top of them. So each one is a different color, and then the backs, I just spray painted some white circles, and so it lets the artwork and my stepmother's writing, it lets it peek through, but it also gives you, you know, two different sides if you wanted to cut apart the cover to use for like tags or journaling cards, things like that. Okay, so let me show you the components of this. And in my Etsy listing, I have put a complete list of all of the papers that are in these books. Okay, so the cover is sewn down one edge, and I just took some seam binding and some ribbon so that you could tie it together. But I also put this on here so that, remember, I want this to be an all-in-one, you know, art kit. So you can cut this. The whole reason why I put this on here was so that you could cut this and use it in your journaling, use it for tags and things like that. The same way with your binding. I want you to be able to use this. And so I just double knotted it over here, and you could easily, not really easily, but you could untie this and put, you know, make this tighter if you needed to, if you've used a bunch of the papers. You could also untie this and retie it if you wanted to use some of this string. Then on the inside, I have just stapled some dress pattern tissue because that is like my #1 go-to collage material. I love this. It just makes great backgrounds. It's great for muting, you know, harsh colors and stuff. So I put a little stack of that, and then I have taped in here, which, by the way, you can use the tape too. This is a little, like a vintage slide, and it's from China. So each one has a different one, but they're all from China. So I found these in an estate sale, and it's it was a collection of these slides from China. So then you've got your dust cover from the cookbook. I've added some, now this is not vintage paper, but this is a local girl here makes this paper. She prints it herself, and I had bought some from her, so I just added a little piece of this into each of the journals. Then you have your fabric, yearbook, and I folded the pages in so that you would get a lot of paper, but it wouldn't hang off the side. Your napkin, some vintage wallpaper, the workbook magazine or workbasket magazine, more wrapping paper, storybook paper, music sheet, some of my most favorite vintage wallpaper, and this is very fragile, so I put it in the center so that the other pages kind of hold it together. But you can rip this paper really easily. You don't even have to use your scissors, and it collages really nice. Then the plant book pages, the score sheet, some ledger paper, cookbook paper, a little address sheet, the highlights magazine, this pretty and colorful wrapping paper that I have way too much of, the field guide paper, the schematic drawings, more highlights magazine, a doily, the calendar with, I stapled some wallpaper up there. Here's the Henny Penny page. It has very pretty, colorful. It looks like it's colored on one side, and then it's black and white and orange on the other. And then I put 2 of these paper clips in. They are just colored paper clips with a little bit of tulle tied to them. There's 2 in each book. And then this is just the other side of those pages. And I just would staple in some tissue paper. The ledger paper has writing on it, and I believe this is from 1970s. And then I just would go in and staple little pieces of paper. Because as you're journaling or as you're collaging and you have scraps, that's this, you know, you can go in and staple and tape and add stuff to your book as well as take stuff out of your book. And then just a little card. So then on the back I have a coin envelope that I've taped in. In the coin envelope I've put a little strip from that, what was that, 1960 whatever yearbook. And then a seam binding wrapper. I just taped that in so it can come off easily. So you can tie it together so it kind of holds all your materials. And there you go. So there's one of them. They're all the same. I have a white, a hot pink, a turquoise, a copper bronze colored, an orange, a bright orange, this kind of khaki green color, have a dark blue, a bright red, a light pink, and one that's kind of it's like a turquoise blue green type of paint on there. So that one's kind of pretty. So they're all pretty much the same. Everything is the same, except the papers just may be a different page from whatever book or whatever source I got it from. But the components are all the same. So in the Etsy shop, I gave some specific pictures for each book. So if you wanted to look at a book in particular and see what types of papers were in them, just check the my Etsy shop. It'll have more detailed pictures, and like I said, it'll have a complete list of everything that's on there. So how would I use this? Well, this is how I used. Keeping with the whole less is more, use what you have. This was, let me see, let me find one. Okay, so this was a page where I used my little collage book, and I used only the stuff that was in that collage book. And if it wasn't in that book, then I didn't use it. And I loved this because there was a piece of tissue, a small piece of tissue paper, and I used every last bit, and it kind of became like a puzzle. Like, how could I take one piece of paper that I've pulled out of that book, and how could I work it on this page and use all of it so that nothing was left? And I did that with all of the papers on here, and it just, I don't know, this is one of my most favoritist. It's about nothing. Like, there's no pictures, there's no journaling on it, but this was just one of my favorite journal spreads because I felt like I was so resourceful, and I felt like I used only what I had, and it really, really pushed my creativity to have a limited supply of materials. And I think it turned out just as beautiful as one that I had an unlimited supply of materials. So yeah, so I am going to list these in my Etsy shop
at 6:00 p.m. Central Standard Time on Sunday, May 28th.
All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, leave me a comment, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.